Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is a temporal collision where color memory coagulates and shivers under the weight of forgotten geometries. It is the echo of a whisper that was never spoken, wrapped in the aesthetic regret of a dream's unfinished blueprint. It is an existential sneeze of frozen mid-expulsion, dripping with the suspicion of abandoned intentions. If nostalgia and entropy got into a shouting match in a prism, this would be the ghost of their handshake. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is a symphonic malfunction of optic nerves where every hue denies its own existence in protest. It is the visual manifestation of a question mark being stretched across 3 dimensions by indecision and regret. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is a cacophony of pulchritudinous emotions, so dense that only silence can decipher its reckless choreography. The canvas of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is less a surface than a conspiracy, plotting the slow undoing of spatial certainty. To imagine the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is to imagine a sigh learning to impersonate a skyline during a solar eclipse, and you are almost there. It is an argument between parallel universes, translated badly into shape and texture by a blind archivist. A picture is worth 1,000 words. This video game is worth over 60,000 lines of dialogue and 120 gigabytes on your hard drive. And a video about this video game should be 1 million hours long, but as I have been contained to this mortal, corporeal, and temporal form, 1 hour will have to do. To speak of a man before regarding where he has come from is to spit on his grave before he is even dead. To speak of a video game before uncovering its entire history would be to pour pasta water on the game disc before attempting to return it to the store for a full refund. Therefore, before even uttering a whisper of a whimper of a sentiment about the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered, we must engage with the history of this fantastical astral mystery of a modern art piece. History is the long, delirious aftertaste of a banquet no one remembers attending, where time itself was served raw and squirming on plates made of melted ambitions. It is the collective dream of a species that mistook shadows for monuments, and then argued, with escalating violence, over the color of the fog. History is the sediment of 1,000 imaginary birds nesting in the ribcage of a dead leviathan, each feather a different lie, each song a different version of an unprovable sorrow. It is a library built from whispers, curated by ghosts who have forgotten their own names, and staffed by bureaucrats made entirely of dust and misplaced calendars. To study history is to don a blindfold stitched from ancestral anxieties and stumble through a gallery where every painting bleeds softly onto the next. It is not what happened, but what keeps happening in reverse, sideways, and sometimes diagonally, humming a tune no living ear was ever meant to understand. 2006, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was released for the Xbox 360 and personal computer on March the 20th. 2007, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was released for the PlayStation 3 on March the 19th. 2008, the world's smallest man, Hey Ping Ping, took a photo underneath the woman with the world's longest legs, Svetlana Pankratova. Oblivion has fallen to the past. 2009, a piece of bread was thrown into the Hadron Collider, causing billions of dollars in damage and setting back human technology for 7,000 years. Time travel will now only be possible as early as the year 6354. Oblivion is still in the past. 2010, a goat smashes through the glass door of a California club. The GOAT remains at large. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion remains in the past. 2011. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is released for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and personal computer on November the 11th. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion has become a lost echo. 2012. A German civil servant admits to not having done any actual work over 14 years. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion is a memory of a memory. 2013. A man discovers a giant Monopoly board underneath the carpet of his domicile. A great mystery unfolds. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion itself has also become a mystery. Did it ever really exist? 2014. A dog coughs up a wedding ring thought to be lost by its owner 6 years ago. And I, too, can think of something that was lost 6 years ago. I wonder to myself, will it ever be found? 2015. A man in the state of Pennsylvania is relieved of his job for releasing too much gas at the wrong place and the wrong time. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion has long ago been left in a wrong place and certainly a wrong time. 2016. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim was released for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 on October the 28th. Emperor Uriel Septim IV turns in his grave like a rotisserie chicken. 2017. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim was released for the Nintendo Switch on November the 18th. 2018. A sea tornado in China brings down a torrential downpour of sea creatures. 2019. A Florida man is arrested for fighting his significant other with a burrito during an argument. Sources say that the argument was about whether or not a groundbreaking RPG had been released in 2006. The results were inconclusive. 2020. The existence of aliens is proven to the world. I personally always believed. And there was something else I used to believe in, but I can hardly remember it anymore. 2021. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is released for the Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X, and the PlayStation 5. 2022. The country of Japan recognizes screaming as a safe public activity after the astral vapors epidemic of 2 years past. And with these screams, a whisper in the wind arises. What could it be? 2023. Soot from the eruption of the Red Mountain on the island of Vardenfell reaches as far as the state of California. The whisper in the wind grows into a mutter on the mist. Something is coming. 2024. Nothing happened at all. And in 2025, The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered was released on April 22nd at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. To spend 4 years in silence and solitude, creating such a mosaic majesty alone would be impressive, but to do so without anyone finding out at all is the stuff of Greek legends. In the world of leakers, sneak peekers, and the mastery level alteration spell Inspect Element, The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered remained unscathed, a secret to everyone. Our universe, which had been slowly shifting towards the direction of destruction, pointed at pandemonium, nuanced to non-existence, has regained its grip on reality. The world has been healed. But there's a question. Is this broken world prepared to even experience our own remedy? Are we worthy of our own Savior? The only way to know is by taking it all in for ourselves, allowing our essence to be redeemed by the grace of the nine divines. The world we live in, the real world, is an absurdity. It is an unfinished puzzle, a false kingdom of false mysteries. We are tossed into this world like a comet, searing at the speed of Maik the liar. The time, the place, are a lazy roll of the dice by the universe. It doesn't even look our way as it does it. We are left alone to find our own purpose. What is the meaning of life? How did I get here? Why didn't anybody ask me? If anybody has those answers, pal, they're trying to sell you something. Or perhaps they are the one that is for sale. And so, here we are at the mercy of the merciless, dependent on the indifferent, asking for directions from the lost. The one eyed man indeed does become king in this land of the blind. But the truth is, hero, we're all blind, baby. But what if in this world we could create another? Somewhere that there is hope, answer, purpose. Somewhere that has everything already determined. What if we could be sure to find our way? What if we had our own land of digital milk and honey? Here we would not be fools, not anymore. We would only be fools if we wanted to be. This is where we can find ourselves. Cyrodiil. Here where we can pick up our long sword, short sword, claymore, dagger, Akaviri katana, Akaviri dai katana, mace, war axe, battle axe, warhammer, bow, staff, or even our own bare hands, in order to claim our destiny and set the record straight on our identity. To exist in the world of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered is to inhabit a realm where myth and reality are not separate categories, but layers of the same shimmering tapestry. Cyrodiil, with its rolling hills, ancient Iliad ruins, and whispering forests, feels less like a setting and more like a living memory, a place that remembers itself even when its inhabitants forget. Time does not merely pass, it loops, echoes, and refracts, shaped by prophecies and Daedric meddling, where fate is written in stars and scrolls, yet always vulnerable to the chaotic agency of mortals. To dwell in this world is to be perpetually poised between transcendence and terror, one foot in the mundane tasks of the guilds and markets, the other brushing against oblivion itself, a realm not merely of demons, but of horror, where reality is unstitched at the edges and remade according to wills beyond comprehension. Every dungeon is a descent into a collective memory, a confrontation with forgotten empires and the shadows of ambition. Magic flows like a language through this world, not just as power, but as a metaphysical force that renders the spiritual physical, the dream real. Even the gods are not immune to change, nor are they distant. They speak through visions, relics, and madness. And in this realm, our hero, our wanderer, becomes a strange ontological fulcrum, a being both subject to the world's deterministic mythos and capable of bending it through sheer will. To live in the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered is to awaken daily in a world where every stone and sunset is laced with meaning, where death is not an end, but a threshold, and where the existential weight of choice is matched only by the surreal beauty of the world that invites you to shape it or be shaped by it. To live in Cyrodiil is to exist in a constant negotiation between freedom and futility, a fragile being adrift in a universe where the fabric of reality itself is thin, fraying, and susceptible to forces that neither know nor care about human striving. Cyrodiil, with all its beauty and splendor, is hardly a paradise. It is a stage set precariously atop ancient violences, forgotten gods, and sleeping monsters. One wakes each day into a world that feels at once meticulously constructed and profoundly absurd. A world where the divinely ordained order of the Empire is unraveling at the seams, where portals to realms of chaos yawn open in the hillsides, and where history is less a steady progression than a looping, haunted spiral. In this dream, you find yourself moving through a society obsessed with hierarchy and ritual. Yet beneath the surface, every institution, the guilds, the temples, the throne itself, trembles with the knowledge of its own impermanence. The amulet of kings, the symbol of divine right and worldly stability, is lost. The dragonfires are extinguished. The gods have, in some fundamental way, abandoned their creation to drift unmoored. And in that void of certainty, existence becomes an intensely personal, intensely existential experience. What does it mean to act, to choose, when the systems that gave life its supposed meaning are crumbling or exposed as hollow? To live in Cyrodiil is to be aware, almost painfully, of your own smallness, not just before towering Daedric princes or giant slaughterfish, but before the inscrutable, grinding machinery of fate itself. You might close a gate to oblivion today, only to sense 100 more opening just beyond the misty horizon. Heroism here is no triumphant arc, but a Sisyphean act of defiance, a refusal to submit even when meaning is eroded from all sides. Every choice made echoes into a cosmic silence that neither applauds nor condemns. You act not because the world demands it, but because not acting is a deeper kind of death. And yet, strangely, there is so much beauty in this bleakness. The forests are still radiant at dawn. The rain still falls soft on ancient stones. In the vast absurdity of the world's collapse, it is the small, stubborn acts of care, courage, and creation that shine most fiercely, made all the more profound because they occur not in a world of assurances, but in a universe that is terrifyingly free. To live in Cyrodiil would be to face daily the naked existential truth. I keep saying existential. The naked truth that modern life often conceals, that nothing is promised, that all meaning must be made, and that in a world so precarious, the simple act of choosing kindness or bravery is itself a form of quiet, heroic rebellion against the void. Or you could be a bad guy. You could be a bad guy, equally fine. Um, that's okay too. Yeah. People thrive on giving others metrics for which to judge and assess their lives by. Some say you haven't lived if you haven't traveled to a foreign country, fallen in love, danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. You haven't lived, the fools say, if you haven't mixed orange juice with Ovaltine and thick water. You might think I will say I'm not a fool, that I will challenge these assertions with my own whimsical deconstruction. But I am only a man. I cannot destroy Everest with a wooden spoon. I cannot outrun a Formula One car. I cannot complete the expansions at level 1 with no equipment. So I will join the cacophony of craziness and misery. I will throw my piece of junk words on the ever growing pile of empty Diet Coke cans. I will become my own mockery. Have you lived if you haven't spent 2 hours in character creation in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion? Blinded by the sliders, lost in the lack of presets, torn between race and origin, splintered between making a monster or making a man? Have you even lived if you haven't drank from the font of the fizziness and dizziness of pure, unadulterated freedom? True character creation is casting a paralyzed spell on self that lasts 2 million hours. There is no empirical proof that this is not the only timeline where I have actually made it past this stage of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered before the heat death of the universe. And no matter what I may choose, you can always come to regret it. Every answer to someone else is the wrong answer, and the dagger only plunges deeper when that someone else is the person in the mirror. But we have found another problem. We have stepped out of the frying pan into a larger frying pan. What good is this one person if they cannot be part of a people? What can we say of our being who wishes to be if they cannot be long? Belonging is the hum of a teacup dreaming it's a cathedral bell, a sideways glance from a dandelion pretending to be a compass. It's the spoon in a thunderstorm that knows exactly which cloud sings lullabies in Morse code to homesick jellyfish. Belonging feels like borrowing a shadow from a chandelier and finding it fits your ankles better than your old regrets. To belong is the paradox of being the 43rd string on a 12-string harp and still being the note that makes the walls remember their blue. Where I belong is where I waltz with wallpaper in a room that doesn't even remember building itself. The belonger, belonging, is a library card made of candle smoke, valid only in cities where clocks tick backward and everyone's name rhymes with maybe. Belongingness is being the comma in an argument between raindrops and cobblestones, essential, overlooked, and somehow triumphant. If you belong, it means that you are being wanted. It means being the velvet itch inside a question mark that realizes it's been upside down this whole time. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered gives the player the paintbrush with which they are in charge of creating the visual representation of the where, the who, the how of their belonging to. And that canvas is the size of the entire map of the Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. Mage, thief, fighter, assassin, crusader, vampire hunter, tourist, honorary member. Every title under the sun and the two moons can be bestowed upon you and only you. A meager video game would only give you the choice of one or two. A meager video game would lock the player out of one faction for choosing another because of conflicting interest. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is not a video game. It is a second life. If the player is seeking to belong, then the player will be rewarded with 1 trillion CCs of belonging. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is the perfect improv comedy partner, always responding with yes and. Every guild is as open to the player as the locks once they receive the skeleton key, and the player doesn't ever have to give the skeleton key back for story reasons. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered does not stop to ask if one person should be the master of the Fighters Guild and the listener of the Dark Brotherhood. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered doesn't quiver at the paradox of one person being the commander of the Knights of the Nine, and the future mantle of the Mad God Sheagorth, it does not have the time. It is too busy watching reruns of Cheers and eating healthy popcorn that isn't even healthy if you eat the whole bag in one sitting, and it's going to eat a dozen bags in one sitting, while the player is off achieving the platinum trophy on one character. The player is given this choice without a word. Not a single line of dialogue, a shred of a fragment of a quantum fiber will be created in order to weave these faction threads. Why would any chess club guru spend their time coding the infinitude of permutations a player character could find themselves in by being in several factions at once? A fighter and a mage? A thief and an assassin? The population of Cyrodiil rewards the player with the object permanence of a toddler. You can be everything, everywhere, everyone. They are not here to challenge your decisions. They are here to root you on with a smile and deafening silence. A smart man would scoff at this ability. A genius would only pick the Fighters Guild and the arena to keep their character lore friendly. But a man with the brain the size of the Eye of Magnus has already become the leader of every guild in Cyrodiil. Another type of person is sitting in the rafters, playing mobile games on their phone, not even paying attention. This type of person does not need belonging. They will not join a single faction and still have the complete experience of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered. They have left their canvas empty and have instead painted every single wall in their padded cell. These types of people are the strongest of all. And what of the other citizens of Cyrodiil? The old soldiers who grow flowers, the cartographers who never leave home, the librarians of forgotten books, the men who collect echoes, the women who speak to the ghosts that dance in the mall, the blocks of this digital building. They are here to play their parts in this non Euclidean story. They are the potential to your kinetic energy, the control group to your experimenting, the walls on the pinball machine. Every rank of every guild that you will soar through like a crazed goblin that has consumed 99 skooma has representation in the world of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered. They are the pieces to this puzzle that make the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered the shonen anime of video games. What does it even mean to be a protector of the Fighters Guild if there are not other protectors? How do I know what a gladiator of the arena looks like if I do not see one with my own four eyes? How would I know where I've been, where I'm going, where I am, if not for the other that is already there? The name of the game of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered is creating a Greek statue of majesty and then looking away. The individual pieces in this imperial mosaic are completely content with remaining where they are. A Myrmidon that is not you will remain a Myrmidon until the time Alduin comes to destroy and reset the known universe. Their endurance is unparalleled. Their patience is the meaning of virtue. Are they complacent, or are they just happier than we are? The answer to that riddle is not up to me or anyone, but the result is that you will progress alone. They are the lines in the thermometer, and you are the rising mercury. Good gameplay in any work of art, such as a video game, is a kind of rarefied alchemy, an exquisitely orchestrated symphony of responsiveness, agency, and immersion that transcends the crude mechanical layer of mere interactivity. It is the frivolously ornate moment when the barrier between player and system dissolves, and what remains is an almost transcendent communion between will and world, a dialogue of intention and consequence so fluid, so effortless, that it escapes conscious thought and becomes pure, kinetic poetry. In these moments, the video game ceases to exist as a discrete artifact, a bundle of polygons, collision detection algorithms, nav meshes, and behavioral scripts, and becomes instead a living extension of the player's mind, a lucid dream given structure and resistance by the invisible hand of design. Every input, every moment, feels not like an exertion, but an inevitability, a perfectly weighted continuation of thought into action. It is not pressing a button to jump. It is desire. It is the desire to ascend, made manifest in motion. Good gameplay dances at the edge of the knife between chaos and control. It tantalizes with just enough friction to demand engagement, yet never so much as to alienate. It draws the player into a rhythm, a hypnotic cadence of challenge and mastery, where the world's internal logic is so impeccably coherent that each obstacle feels not like an imposition, but an invitation to self actualization. It is a feeling of utter trust. Trust that the video game world will reward curiosity, skill, perseverance without cheap trickery or arbitrary cruelty. Above all of these, good gameplay is characterized by a sense of meaningful presence, a feeling that one's actions matter, that the world remembers and reshapes itself around one's agency. It is an intoxicating feedback loop of stimulus and response, where even failure is a kind of seduction, whispering that redemption lies just on the other side of understanding. To play a game with truly good gameplay is to lose oneself, not in mindless distraction, but in focused rapture. It is a rare and precious sensation, a fleeting brush with something greater than entertainment, an invitation, however ephemeral, to experience what it means to be truly alive inside of an idea. But The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered plays a game with games. It is not enough for The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered to offer good gameplay. It is not enough to offer the best gameplay. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered breaks the skybox of metricism. It seeks to give itself, on the scale of 1 to 10, a score of the letter J. The competition of good gameplay is for children, and The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is a 4,000-year-old Dwemer. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered wants to play Dejaric while everyone else is playing Pazak. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered asks the player a different question. What if you do not want to play the game at all? Why spend your precious hours training block in the buttery smooth, flawless melee combat when you could hold the block button down with a hair tie and go to the mall with your friends? Why train magic like a wizard when you could train magic like a god? Your character can sit on a bed and cast spells for infinite hours without rest, while you, your real self, lies in their own bed. The development team of The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered only has one favorite movie: war games. The only way to win is not to play at all, and we are their Matthew Broderick. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is the RuneScape of video games. It is the fan, the Fanta, and the sea in fantasy. Game play, game away. I hear something coming. I see it, too. Let me see your faces. You are the ones from my dreams. Then the stars are right, and this is the day. Gods, give me strength. I have not earned the right to be heard. I am not the Anton Ego of game reviews. I am not Jib. I haven't been to the Cloud District even once. You have fought mud crabs more fearsome than me. What qualifies me to make the first Oblivion Remastered retrospective? What, truly, qualifies a man to be worthy of the task of criticism? Is it knowledge, hard earned and deeply rooted? But then, what is knowledge, if not a collection of other men's thoughts, passed down, revised, and sometimes blindly accepted? Can one claim authority simply because he has read more, seen more, spoken more? Or must he have suffered through the thing he critiques, lived inside it, been broken by it, and reassembled, piece by trembling piece, in its shadow? Does experience make a man worthy then? And if so, what kind of experience? Must the food critic have gone hungry? Must the war historian have killed? Is it enough to observe, or must one participate? Can an outsider ever truly understand the inside? Or is the outsider precisely who sees most clearly, unclouded by familiarity or emotional investment? What of intention? Does it matter if the critic seeks truth, or is truth even accessible at all? If his motive is noble, but his logic flawed, is he still worthy? If he speaks with eloquence but little heart, does the shape of his words outweigh their substance? Can we trust the man who mocks the play but never dared to write one? Or the one who tears down a building but never held a hammer? And what of humility? Can a man be worthy to criticize if he lacks self awareness? If he speaks always from the pulpit and never from the pews? Is the worthiness of criticism tied to the critic's willingness to be criticized? Can one judge without being judged? Or perhaps the question is not about the critic at all, but the criticism itself. Should we measure the man or the merit of his words? But how can we separate the two? Can truth ever be divorced from the tongue that utters it? Can a villain speak wisdom? Can a saint spread poison? Have I even played the video game? You are right to ask these questions. Talking about this journey is only the idea of a journey. Shadows on the cave wall if I do not share my own. I have played the video game. I have lived the video game. I am from the video game. To walk through the paved roads of Cyrodiil again, to claim citizenship to the world plate of Tamriel, to exist as a living, breathing, crying individual in the realm of Nirn, is to remember who I am all over again. It was all returning to me, the fragments becoming whole once again. I know who I am now. I knew who I had been before. I had been here the whole time. I was born on April 21st, 2025. I had spent my childhood marching through the marsh of the city of Breville. Childhood is the primordial garden of human existence, a time before the full weight of the world has pressed its imprint onto the soul. It is the first unfolding of consciousness, a brief golden season when reality is both more vivid and more malleable, when wonder is not an exception, but the ground state of being. In childhood, the border between the self and the world is permeable. A child does not merely observe a tree or a river, but, in some profound sense, participates in its existence. The imagination is sovereign, and through it, every corner of experience is illuminated with potential meanings that adulthood too often teaches us to overlook or suppress. To be a child is to exist closer to the wellspring of being, to live in the raw immediacy of the present moment. Time as a child flows differently, not in the rigid segments of minutes and deadlines, but in vast, immersive expanses shaped by play, curiosity, and emotional immediacy. In childhood, joy can stretch a moment into an eternity, while sorrow can seem bottomless and infinite. It is a time when emotions are not muted by cynicism or decorum, but are felt in their full, unmediated force. Childhood embodies both the innocence of unknowing and the purity of first discovery. It is a dance between dependency and the slow, aching yearning toward autonomy. Every small mastery, a first step, a first word, a first realization of otherness, is a microcosmic reenactment of the human journey towards selfhood. And yet, paradoxically, the child often exists more authentically than the adult, less alienated from their needs, desires, and dreams. In this way, childhood becomes a mirror held up to the adult self, revealing both what has been gained in wisdom and what has been lost in spontaneity, creativity, and sincerity. Childhood is a crucible where the essential questions of life first emerge in their most unadulterated form. A child asking, "Where did I come from?" or "Why are there two moons?" touches upon the mysteries of existence, causality, and identity, not yet shackled by the cautious, hedged language of academic inquiry. There is, in a child's questions, a raw, unfiltered confrontation with the universe, an echo of the same awe and terror that fueled the earliest myths and the loftiest philosophical forms. And yet, childhood is also so fragile, so very fragile, a fleeting territory that one departs from but never truly leaves behind. It is carried forward in memory and dream, often idealized or mourned, sometimes resented or repressed. The child we once were remains within us, a hidden interlocutor in our internal dialogues, a silent witness to the person we have become. In moments of genuine creativity, in profound encounters with beauty, in acts of unconditional love, we glimpse again the world as we once saw it, full of mystery, alive with possibility. Childhood is not merely a stage of life, it's a condition, a mode of being attuned to the wonder, vulnerability, dependence, and the aching desire to understand and to belong. It reminds us that to be human is to be, first and last, a seeker, beginning in helplessness, passing through experience, and perhaps, if we are fortunate, returning once again to a kind of knowing unknowing, wise enough to recognize the limits of wisdom, open enough to be astonished once more. All of these truths I found at the bottom of every skooma bottle I could find. Though my existence was as deep as the depths of Vilverin, and my aspirations as high as the throat of the world, my direction was obstructed, disarmed, shattered by the horrors of needing to consume skooma as often as Bretonly possible. Burning the candle from both ends was far too slow. I had reached into a fourth spatial dimension to burn everything faster than you could say, by Azura. My family was a mystery. Were they a victim of some court intrigue in High Rock? Had they crash landed after using an odd number of scrolls of Icarian flight? Had they zero summed? To be truthful, knowing the answer wouldn't have even brought me solace at the time. And it wasn't an answer I was even searching for. My answer was moon sugar in liquid form. Not everyone is lucky enough to find a friend in such a place, let alone a friend in a high place. Granted, the highest place in Breville socially is an anthill compared to the majority of Cyrodiil. And yet, a friend had arrived. His name, Breville Guard. On a dark, rainy evening, truly no different from any other in this region, I found him. He awaited me with a smile. He awaited me with direction. To find a friend who can guide you is to stumble upon a rare and precious gift. A soul who sees not only who you are, but who you might yet become. Their wisdom does not impose itself like a heavy hand, but instead lights a path just ahead, offering strength without judgment and direction without domination. In their presence, growth feels less like a burden and more like a shared adventure, a journey made lighter by trust, laughter, and the quiet, steady knowledge that you are not walking alone. Breville Guard was all of this and more. He knew that I was a skooma addict. It was something we never even had to speak about. When I began to be countlessly and regularly removed from the Breville prison on good behavior, days before my sentence was supposed to be over, I knew who was responsible. The dissonance between the person that I was and the person Breville Guard was had become a festering, constant pain in my consciousness. What gave me the right to have such good company? He seemed to have the power of Akatosh in his presence, in his virtue, and without even uttering a word, without a syllable, I eventually knew what I had to do. I put my last bottle down. I set my sights outside the city. I had never even dreamed of leaving for real. I had only ever left to commit atrocities in the name of receiving every single septim I could for my habit. But not anymore. This would not last. This could not last. Something else, unfortunately, would not last either. You never know what you have until it's completely gone. RK giveth, and RK taketh away. It was the 12th of second seed. I was on my way to the Fighter's Guild to ask for the dozenth time to join, always being recommended to Coral. Coral was just too far a journey for me yet, but I'd always been hopeful to check in every day in case they were recruiting local. And then I heard the bone-chilling call. A gasp. What's going on? Another. By the gods, there's a psychopath on the loose. I made my way down to the commotion, near the water. And there he was. He looked at peace, at least. Things were never the same. How could they possibly ever be the same? Losing a loved one is like waking up in a universe where the laws of physics have quietly rewritten themselves overnight. Gravity still works, but it tugs strangely at your chest. Light still shines, but it flickers with an unplaceable grief. It's as if someone has removed the color from the spectrum, and everyone goes on pretending the world is still whole. You walk through days as though submerged in syrup or dreams, half believing that if you turned a corner sharply enough, they might still be there, giving directions to the Fighters Guild with time itself. Their absence echoes like a joke told in a forgotten language. You remember it was funny once, but now it only leaves a hollow ringing in your bones. Death does not take them cleanly. It folds them into your reality like a strange seam in the wallpaper of existence, always visible if you know where to look, always whispering that love, once born, never quite obeys. I could only hope he was in Sovngarde. His father, also named Breville Guard, was a Nord after all. I did what I could to grieve, but I knew what I could not do. I could not stay. Grieving is the soul's reckoning with absence, not simply the loss of another, but but the reshaping of the self in the void they leave behind. It is the profound recognition that love does not end with death, but instead lingers as pain, memory, longing, each a testament to the depth of connection once shared. Grief reveals the fragile contingency of all things. Yet, in its silent ache, it also affirms that what was lost mattered deeply. To grieve is to stand in the presence of impermanence and still choose to remember, to honor, and to feel. I had to leave Breville, and I haven't looked back since. Everything I do is to honor Breville Guard. Every step I have taken, every level I have gained, every septum, every point of experience, every mud crab, bandit, skeleton champion, skeleton guardian slain is some attempt to remember Breville Guard. Breville itself did not remember him. A wise man once said that places do not remember you unless you're dead. That man had clearly never been to Breville. To speak on leaving Breville finally, definitively, would be to say that it was sweet and bitter at the same time. A wordsmith perhaps would call it bittersweet, but I'm no wordsmith. I am the force of reckoning upon the unjust and vicious. I am the answer to a seemingly forgotten prayer. I am the hands and feet of the divines. I am comeuppance and fleshed. It was easier to dredge forward slaying bandits and ne'er-do-wells than it was to look back and reflect on what I had lost. Some of this mercy and justice upon the criminals and monsters of Cyrodiil was from the heart of a man who desired for others to never be hurt again. If I could delete pain and suffering in mass so that the next generation would never go through the same experience of finding their loved ones passed upon the waters, I would certainly try. But some of this was selfish. Some of it all was an attempt to bury the unending chronic sear of grief so that I would never have to show my face to it once more. Some called me a hero. Then many called me a hero. I can say, during it all, I really wasn't trying to be a hero. I didn't care about the fame, the accolades, the wimpy Imperial dragon armor that had already become worthless by the time I came around to picking it up. It was never about the attention. I even ran from attention. "It's you," they would say. And by that time, I was already zipping away for the next destination. There was an irony within all of this, a sobering paradox, an oxymoron. I was once no better than the criminals I was bringing my mace or axe to defeat. Did they not deserve a chance as well to redeem themselves? Surely I knew that I was no better than anyone else. I was a walking contradiction, a creature of opposing currents, loving solitude yet aching for connection, craving change while fearing the unknown, wise in thought yet foolish in habit. I was a self never fully coherent, feeling both too much and not enough, torn between the desire to belong and the longing to disappear. But perhaps it was this inner dissonance that was not a flaw, but the very essence of being human. A testament to my complexity, a reminder that the soul, like the universe, resists simplicity, and thrives in tension. We are puzzles that solve themselves only through living, and I would outlive every enemy that dared to get in the way of saving the people of Tamriel from themselves. If there is any qualifier to be made, if there is any bar to be crossed, if earning is any more than an illusion, then I have earned. I have crossed. I have qualified. I have shattered the ceiling with the force of a dragon shout. I have leaped the metric with the grace of a Khajiit. I have outdreamed the dreamer. If being from Cyrodiil itself does not give me the right to say my piece about the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered, then no one is worthy at all. There will be no more videos. but we know this not to be true. Every single person is worthy of singing the song that resonates in their heart, tuning it to the rest of the frequencies of the world in order to create a beautiful melody. There will not be no more videos. There will be an unfathomable number of videos. YouTube will have to create a second website just to host all of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered retrospectives. I set out to create a retrospective that was 1 million hours long. I have failed greatly. I will return to the streets of the Imperial City to hone my speechcraft. I can only hope that the masterful, organic, lifelike, radiant dialogue of the citizens of Tamriel will speak of the one who at least tried. I will leave you, dear viewer, with my parting words on the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. Experiencing the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is like being mugged at gunpoint by a ghost made of velvet and forgotten childhood dreams. It is the sensation of having your ribcage carefully unzipped by invisible hands, and your soul tenderly ironed out onto a clothesline strung between two moons. The world, with its petty concerns about taxes, dental appointments, and grocery lists, dissolves like wet tissue paper, and you find yourself tumbling headlong into a corridor of infinite mirrors, each reflecting not your own face, but the many secret versions of yourself you never had the courage to invent. The air grows thick with the heavy perfume of colors unnamed by human tongues, and every heartbeat echoes like a dinner bell inside your marrow. Time folds inward like a dying star, and for an indeterminate span, a century or the length of a blink, it makes no difference. You are neither subject nor object, observer nor observed. You are merely happening, coalescing and decoalescing, a river dreaming it is a man dreaming he is a scream. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered speaks to you, but not in words. It vibrates in your teeth, hums in your blood, crawls under your fingernails, and reprograms the syntax of your internal monologue. It does not offer meaning in the polite, familiar sense. No neat moral conclusions, no digestible insights to be traded at cocktail parties for approving nods. Instead, the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered gives you a kind of exquisite vertigo, a giddy sense that the scaffolding of reality is made not of logic and matter, but of fragile, trembling metaphors, forever threatening to slip free from their own definitions. To experience the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is to be inducted, unwillingly but gratefully, into the secret brotherhood of bewildered creatures. The moth that yearns for the annihilating flame, the stone that dreams of flight, the smile that persists, even as the mouth that birthed it forgets its purpose. You will not emerge unchanged. At best, you will return to your ordinary life with the subtle, maddening conviction that everything you encounter, traffic cones, dying houseplants, unpaid bills, the way a stranger glances at you across a crowded room, is encoded with significance far deeper and far more dangerous than reason will allow. You will carry the wound of wonder, a beautiful, irreparable injury that will ache at the most inconvenient moments. And though you will be grateful, you will never quite be able to explain why. I give the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered a 1 out of 10.